Nothing is rocket science.
Fantastic.
Somebody told me this, and that time I was trying to navigate my career, and this person just simply told me, whatever you choose to do, please remember nothing is rocket science, okay?
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Dialogue with Darwin, a series where we deep dive into conversations with industry HR leaders to understand the evolution of HR over the years and also to take a peek into the future of work from their vantage point. Today, we are thrilled to welcome Shati, Senior Director of Human Resources at GEP Solutions. Shati is a key leader at GEP, leading the people agenda for the Asia Pacific region. With over 2 decades of experience that spans across multiple industries, Shati is an expert in HR strategy, learning and development, leadership hiring, and what we are interested about today is diversity and inclusion. Welcome, Shati, to Dialogue with Darwin. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Gautami and team, for inviting me for this session. I love interacting with people, so it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. It's our pleasure, and we look forward to learning a lot from your journey and how it has evolved over the years. We promise to keep it interesting and fun too. But to begin with, Shati, you, through your career, have developed several programs for women and passionately mentored women to bring out the best and the fullest of their potential. Right. And today I wanted to deep dive specifically in this area with you because I see a unique challenge that organizations like GEP and many others might be tackling in terms of building diversity in a working environment that may not be as conducive for particularly women to be a part of the workforce. And it is not because of the lack of doing from the organization, but it is driven more from a business requirement, right? And there are many such. So I think to take a step back, we do talk about diversity and inclusion. And today, diversity fortunately has evolved much beyond gender as a concept and topic. But I think there is merit in acknowledging that there are still sectors and areas where even building gender diversity has not been an easy job, right? And I see that you're at the forefront of it, tackling this challenge day in, day out. So I'm super interested to dive into your thoughts and insights on that front. To begin with, if I may ask you, especially in the multinational ITES sort of sector that is more US facing in business, how challenging has it been for organizations to build their diversity profile purely even from a women participation in the workforce? How challenging is it today, Shati?
Okay, so firstly, I must say this, and I take pride in saying this that at GEP, at the founder level, we are gender diversity. So we are 50% gender diversity, and our organization was started by an Indian lady. So it is a minority-led Asian company. So that I really take pride in. Both our co-founders are women and from the Asian origin. So that's a very proud moment for all of us. And the diversity and inclusion, while this is, of course, I'm hearing it very much off late in our organization, this has been really playing for a long, long time. So this was not even when diversity and inclusion was really introduced, but we really, really care, and we really feel that through diversity is when you will bring in ideas and you will be able to progress as an organization. Today when I see even when I'm on the road and when I see even women auto drivers, it makes me so thrilled to see that this is one area maybe we had never thought we will see women drive. I see them standing in queues with their with other men auto drivers and waiting for passengers, and driving. Many times I try and take one auto just to get the experience and have a conversation with these women to see how they feel in this workplace which is primarily led by men. So things are changing, and I think in India we are making a lot of efforts and a lot of changes from a policy perspective, from ensuring that we get in best practices that we are bringing in. Maternity leaves, for example, has been quite long now compared to other countries. I think we provide very good maternity leaves, etc., so that it makes it more conducive for women to continue in the workplace. Men have also started being a little more partnering. I see these days, like versus what we had seen in the past, I think men are also equally cognizant and making a lot of efforts, and are trying to be equal partners in the workspace as well as in the home space. So that's an observation. Where we face a challenge, while very while there is a metric that tracks, so every leader has a metric to track to say that are they being inclusive, are they being ensuring that they have the right diversity within within their functions and sub function, and how do we encourage. We have a very good mechanism or a matrix that we track. So we look at it as four pillars. Okay, the first pillar is how do you ensure that you attract more diverse talent, right? Either be lateral hiring or through campus. That is the first pillar. The second pillar is, now that you have hired diverse talent, how do you ensure you have right policies in place and look at best practices in the industry? You have to make some changes so that you are able to provide them a conducive work environment. The third is, now you have got them through the door, you have ensured that you have the right policies and procedure and conducive work environment. The third is, how do you ensure that you are enabling them to grow? While we understand there are certain programs which is all across for all colleagues, but might be for certain colleagues you will need to have certain programs. And like, I am happy that I was able to come across, work with external partners to develop programs which were specifically for women in the mid management and in the senior management. So that is the third thing. The fourth is, now how do you celebrate success? Now that you have got all of this, how do you ensure you are celebrating success? You are having the right mechanism to see in the promotion panels there is a representation that is there. Whenever somebody is progressing or has been able to create or might be enable or upskill themselves, how do you ensure that you are celebrating through quarterly newsletters, through publishing, internal communication, and all of that? So these are the four pillars that we work across. Having said that, we do have challenges. Like, ours is more like an extended arm of the US and the UK office. So we do have clients primarily in these regions. So given that, the clients will expect that they have their counterparts work in their time zone, so that they are able to face off, they are able to have conversations, they are working together. So the challenge that we see is at an entry level, when we hire, when we hire students or candidates from campuses, they're at a younger age, they're starting their career, they're absolutely enthusiastic about working with different cultures, they don't mind time zones, etc. So there we see that we are able to attract talent. Where we see challenges is once they reach a certain level in their life stage, where either they're getting married or they have senior folks at home where they have to take care, so they're caregivers. That is where we see challenges. Now you would ask me, okay, but you said that you have made changes in policies and brought in best practices. Yes, we do. So for example, we are in an SEZ zone, so we are in a special economic zone where from a government perspective also there is there is childcare available. There are childcare centers that are there within the premise. But unfortunately, those childcare centers only operate from a 9 a.m. to a 6 p.m. or a 5 p.m. kind of work, right? Whereas our workforce and certain workforce will also come into office by 6 p.m. and leave by 3 a.m. So what do we do for that workforce? Because they are not able to get their children to the office because there is no way to manage that. In-house, we are not able to create a center because, again, you need a lot of factors to have a center within your office to ensure that childcare is provided. So that becomes a challenge. And I know government has come up with certain policies. NASCOM, for example, we had a session few months before, and we had HR leaders from different companies come in and talk about this, and we all acknowledged. So this is one challenge where I don't think there's an immediate solution yet. So I think NASCOM is also wanting to work with the government to see how do we make this more viable for women to continue in the workforce when they are at a different life stage, and how should we encourage that. While hybrid is there a bit, so you can still give them hybrid work from home, but then that becomes unfair to the other workforce, right? So you'll have to find a way to do a way to manage all of this. So we are still working around it, but there is that particular section where I see a challenge, and not every time will you be able to provide an internal mobility or a hybrid work from home to ensure that this workforce can continue at the workplace. So that's where I see a little bit of a challenge, and might be we'll as in whole we'll have to think how can we bring in some changes in that space.
No, absolutely. I think very aptly said, Shati. And in fact, firstly, I want to take a step back and acknowledge that it's good to see the change that you actually want to drive all the way from leadership.
Yes.
So, really good to know that GP is in fact women founders and has leadership representation to the extent of 50% in from women. That's fantastic. And I'm sure that's playing a huge role in also driving that down the levels as well, right?
Yes.
And I know while we are speaking about examples of GEP, I think this is a problem that we are understanding at broad about a
Hmm.
whole sector or similar sectors where working conditions may not be as conducive for women to take part in the workforce, right?
Hmm.
And interesting to learn, like you said, that while entry levels can still be solved for,
Yes.
the problem is getting steeper as women kind of reach mid management or the moment they start their families, etc. And I like the honesty with which you also acknowledge that there's not an immediate solution for this that anyone has figured out yet.
Yes.
Now, if to just add to that complexity, I'm sure like this sector is also expanding to locations beyond the tier one, right?
Yes.
Today, India, I mean, fortunately, the services, in fact, India should be proud about the representation that we have on a global level for the whole services sector, right? I think IT
Exactly.
services is, in fact, the biggest product that we have aced globally in the last 2 decades, right? And I'm seeing that further expansion in this sector is happening even in the tier two cities, right? And I'm sure this problem must be getting steeper there, or what is your observation?
Yes, and honestly, very recently, 2 years back, we started our center in Coimbatore. And, because given the amount of talent that is available, the kind of schools and institutes that are there, several, and we said that, that is a sweet spot that might be we can move towards. And availability of talent, of course, was the first. When we started, when we first went there and we started to hire, and the challenge was that because most of our work, like I said, is in the 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. kind of work hours. I think traditionally those locations, especially tier two cities, are still grappling with this change where there are suddenly these ITs companies which are coming to them. Suddenly they had this, nice little small town that they were, and everybody think everything would shut by 10 p.m. They would enjoy their meals with their families, go back to home. Everything is dark and nobody's on the road at 10, right? But now suddenly things have changed. There are with more companies coming in, you will have a nightlife, you will have hotels, restaurants and pubs being open till late night, you will see people on the road late night. Still, I think acceptance is yet to come. Certain parts of India, I think, are a little more conservative than certain parts. Might be somewhere it was a little more flexible. They have overcome that very quickly. Versus might be some parts where they're still grappling with this idea. The what we did differently, I would say, is one is inviting even the parents to the workplace. Right, we did a family day sort of. We ensured that parents are able to come and visit us when the interview process is going on or when the child joins the company. What I have observed is one is it gives them a lot of comfort when they meet the senior leaders, when they engage with us, they speak to us, they realize that, oh, this is a safe workplace for my child. And all the other hygiene factors in terms of ensuring that there is transport, there's pickup and drops, there is security that is available, there is somebody from the admin team taking care to see that every person has reached home. There are male colleagues who have been very supportive. So, for example, the male colleagues have been very supportive, saying that no, even if my drop is earlier, I'll ensure that the lady is dropped and then I am dropped back. So, and one of our core values is caring. Okay, and I really see it almost that core value is imbibed in every individual, every gepper, as we call us ourselves. Every gepper has that in those values embedded within them. They hold these values very very closely, and I'm very happy to say that. But I think two things from my side, and even in one of my earlier organization, we had done this. We had called this as male milap. So when we hired campus hires, we used to invite their parents for a meet and greet sort of a session. And then their parents would come, they had an opportunity to interact with the senior leaders. Then we would have a, high tea sort of, where they were interacting with us, and they could sense us or talk to us as human beings. So, not as senior leaders, but as human beings who are like them, who have equal same same kind of fear, and who also care for colleagues like they care for their children. So I think this has helped a little bit to break the myth. And now I see more flexibility, especially at junior or starting levels. What I have seen is they are good to do the 6 p.m., 3 a.m. shift or the later shift, because they feel they get a lot of time at home. Either they are pursuing further studies, or they want to spend time with family, or they want to pursue some hobbies. So that amount of time is available during the day for them to do it, and they can do their work at night. So that is now opening up more doors.
No, absolutely interesting to learn, Shati. And I think from what I understand, Tier 2 has a much bigger cultural shift and an ecosystem development that needs to happen. I think it has to be a collective exercise from all the companies operating in the region. So
Mm-hmm.
over the years, and it's not just for like the participation or whatever. I think one thing is important to acknowledge that family is very much part of that individual who is coming and contributing to the growth of
Yes.
your company, right? So every year at the end of the year, even from Darwinbox, there's
Mm-hmm.
there's a letter that goes to the family, the spouse as well as the parents,
Okay.
talking about how the company is doing, what are some of
Uh-huh.
the initiatives that we've taken, how are we growing, how is this becoming a better place for their kids to be a part of or their spouse to be a part of, is a long tradition that we've been following for the last 8 years almost,
Very
right? So
nice.
everybody receives, and in their local language, by the way, we also understand
Oh,
parents kind of need to, maybe not everyone will be comfortable with the
exactly.
same mode of communication.
Sure.
On the same front, before we jump into talking a little about your personal, take on empowering women and future leaders and women, just concluding this particular conversation around adverse work conditions and how to encourage diversity even in adverse work conditions, Shati, how does this challenge again kind of scale from
Mm-hmm.
entry level to mid management to leadership? And you did mention in the first phase of the conversation that we were having that while entry level is easier, it becomes far more difficult at mid management. And we know that diversity gets affected when there is lesser representation at the top. So how are you trying to solve for that? Or what is an advice that you have for other organizations also on how to tackle that?
Sure. So, like I said, there are a couple of concerns. So, one, like we said, shift timing itself could be a concern, right? For that, it could be limitations in terms of how much you can do. One is you can speak to the client. Many a times, the person has worked with the client for long, so the client has the comfort, and they might be flexible to move it a couple of hours earlier, or have a shorter window where they can interact with the individual. So that is one possibility. The second is an hybrid, or allow some work from home on couple of days of the week, or might be they log in for some time, go home, and then log in for some time. Those are few things that we can do. On the other side too, so that the women also have that comfort, and they also, because see, at times, and especially in India, what happens is you still have families, women who are staying with families, right? So there will be in-laws, there will be, it's not only your husband or your partner, but there are also in-laws who are there in the house. And there are certain values, traditional values that they have, and their expectations are very different, right? So while you are working, you are still expected to set the dinner table, to pick up the plates, maybe to do certain work, right? So you are required to be there. So then, having said that, they tend to then make the decision of saying that, okay, I don't think I can manage all of this. Might be I'll just take a career break, right? And then I'll go back. And then again, getting back to the career is not so easy. While there are many organizations who are making effort in terms of return to work, or providing part-time jobs, or providing flexibility. What one unique thing that we have done is we have created this whole platform, which is called the championship program, or power of two. So what we have done is we have several women leaders within the India organization, at least. So we have got a whole set of women leaders who are there. We have created their profile and created a platform where there is a nice small summary of their profile. Like, for example, professionally, how have they developed? Personally, what is their background? What are their hobbies? What are the kind of skills they bring? And what is their interest area? We publish this across the organization like a small booklet or available platform where other women mid to junior levels can reach out to these women leaders if they see that they have a similar interest area or similar skill set or similar professional growth that they are looking at. They can reach out, and this is not managed by HR. We have just created the platform, but this is in one to one help sort of. So you reach out to the leader, you set up time depending on the frequency and the regularity that you want. It could be weekly, it could be monthly, it could be once in a quarter. The way the comfort is over a coffee or over lunch, but you can engage with a leader where you can get certain guidance, right? So there are a lot of personal aspects as well as professional aspects that you can discuss with the leader, and the leader can guide and coach you in terms of how to steer through these kind of situations because they have themselves gone through those in the past. So that works beautifully because it's in one on one. It is not monitored. It is not, it is absolutely a free flow conversation where you don't even feel pressurized, or you don't feel, oh, if this conversation goes back to my manager, or, will I be judged? Like, so you don't have to worry about all of that. So that's, I think, worked beautifully for us, the power of two, and women colleagues engage with their leaders, through this platform.
One is the mentorship from people who have gone through similar kind of journey.
Yes.
But what I've also learned, Shati, is it's also about knowing that someone else is able to do this. It
Yes.
itself kind of makes someone also understand that, hey, I think maybe it is not time to give up yet.
We have done also many a times just after childbirth, when the baby is small. That's also one period which is very vulnerable. Like, you might almost want to give up. The guilt, the whole guilt feeling that saying that, am I doing a right thing by leaving my child home? So we also created a similar platform for mom and mom. So what we
Mm.
do is, we buddy a new mother with a mom, and so that they can again engage at their own level. They have their own challenges, what they have gone through, and so these mom buddies are also very helpful. So that's another platform that is created typically more for the mothers, the new mothers and the mothers, to engage on.
True, true. No, absolutely. Fantastic insight. And in fact, those are some critical moments where, the drop offs can be really high,
Yes,
and it's important to ensure, retention at that phase. Uh,
exactly.
and more comforting to learn from someone who has gone through it themselves.
Yes.
Want to take it to your personal journey as well in career, Shati, not just from the company standpoint or organization standpoint, as an individual and as a leader and as a women leader who has grown and risen to a position of responsibility and power, what is one key piece of advice you would give to women who are aspiring to grow into leadership positions where maybe the current gender representation may not be as balanced or is very skewed?
Sure. So one thing, Gautami, I would say I was very lucky that right from childhood, like at home, I never experienced this, the gender diversity bit. So I never thought that there was, anything around, and this was like many years back. And during that time, diversity was not even discussed, or not even, there was no formal platform to talk about all of this, right? But I never feel there was a difference. Like, what was available for my brother was also available for me. So I was in that way fortunate. When I started work, and I started at a very junior level, entry level position, because I was still figuring out what to do. Those days MBAs were fairly expensive and also not available to everyone. I think personally, the fire in the belly. I always say that, to have that fire in the belly to want to do something, I think is the first thing. If you have that fire in the belly, then you will find your way to reach where you want to reach. The other thing, that the mantra that I go with, and my team members always, laugh about it, in the sense they very lovingly always say this, like Shati says, like Shati says. I feel your career is in your hand. Okay, you may have sponsors, you may have allies, you may have mentors who will guide you, who will coach you, and all of that, but it is in your hands. How do you want to develop your career? What is it that you want to do? And I think initially, of course, when you start your career, you are not so thoughtful. You don't really start thinking, oh, I'm going to do my career in this way, or I'm going to grow in this way. But over a period of time, you will realize that you should be able to steer your career and ensure that you are doing what you want to do to take you where you want to be. So I think that is very important, and I take pride in this. Of course, I started at a very junior entry level position, to at a very basic kind of job profile, to where I am today. When I look back, and without much support, because we did not have the kind of resources, or the kind of funds to that time invest in certain kind of education. I did it much later in my life. So I feel that if I was able to do it, I'm sure anyone will be able to do it.
Yeah.
So that's my this. You own your career, and you have to have the fire in the belly.
No, absolutely. I love what you said and how you said it, Shati. I think
Mhm.
I know we talk a lot about how we need to enable women to grow, or we need to empower them. We need to make things better so that it is easier to get there. But I think nothing beats just the passion to do well at
Yes.
work, right? I think that's the fundamental that needs to be well in place, right? There can be struggle, I'm sure. Like, there are multiple priorities that are being balanced out, and I think I'm allowed to speak being a woman myself
Yeah.
in work. But I really, really resonate with the thought that you shared, that it all starts with you wanting to do something for yourself and to do well at it,
Yeah.
right? Let me also ask you, like, while we speak about, you know, gender diversity and kind of driving inclusion at workplace, a lot of things that we try to do to enable that
Hmm.
can also come in the way of real inclusion for the other counterparts, right?
Hmm.
For example, you did speak about one thing in the beginning, that, hey, if we have to offer flexible work hours for women who reach mid management,
Hmm.
might not be right for the other, genders who are having to work the same shifts from, the workplace. So how do you balance the whole aspect of real inclusion of everybody involved,
Hmm.
same time make sure that you're able to drive up the participation of women at work? Do you see a conflict happening when we are trying to drive diversity up?
Yeah, in fact, Gautami, and this is my personal view, absolutely, because right from, like I said, right from my childhood, I always used to feel that I never experienced this sort of issues with diversity that time, and I feel that if you are expecting to be treated differently, okay, that itself is wrong. Because yes, you have certain competencies and skills, and you are wired certain ways. Might be the other gender is having certain skills and competencies, and they are wired differently. But when you come to the workforce, and if you are expecting pay parity, equal treatment, all of that, then you should also ensure that you don't start expecting more than them, right? You can't expect that the company will bend backwards to accommodate you. You can't then expect that there will be different set of policies for you, because that is not right. Then if you are expecting to be treated equally, then you should also expect the same policies, the same the same work environment that is there. But having said that, I do understand certain times women do come from, might be a certain background, or at times there are restrictions, so they will need some more flexibility and all of that. I do understand, but personally I have tried never to expect it for myself, at least. So that is one thing I have always been clear about, that I will not expect that. I will try and do within the framework that is there. Having said that, we are fortunate that at least in my current organization, we are able to offer flexibility. So it doesn't matter whether you are a male colleague or you're a female colleague, right? But if there is a situation that you are required to, for whatever reason, it could be being a caregiver, or maybe managing a home situation, or managing a personal situation, or education, or whatever, we have allowed that flexibility. It is in partnership with the business and the HR business partner, to discuss and understand what is the situation and what is the kind of flexibility that is required. And we have been fortunate enough to be able to provide that to our colleagues wherever required. So that is something that we have been able to do. In all fairness, we also say everything equal. If the candidate is a diversity, is comes from a diverse background, and you feel everything equal. If you need to make a choice, then you can lean towards the choice for the diversity or the diverse candidate. But let it not be at the cost of business, or let it not be cost of, deserving candidate losing out on that opportunity. That we are very clear. So, we say that, all being equal, ensure that you are making the right decision for the talent, right decision for the company. So
No,
that ways we have been, lucky that we were able to, understand, we were able to do these kind of interventions.
I think I wouldn't want to say anything more, Shati. I think it's just fabulously put. I think I have to acknowledge, I've not had a conversation where I've aligned this much with every single thought that has been shared about, particularly this topic that I'm also personally passionate about.
Okay.
So good to know that we resonate in terms of, how we think, and truly inspiring as well to learn some of the examples, Shati, on how you have individually held yourself to higher standards and also kind of driven that at the workplace. Thank you, and kudos to that. I want to now, kind of slide into a little more fun and little more personal
Sure.
side, right? I know I've been asking very serious representation questions on gender diversity and all, but to learn a little about how you evolved in your personal journey as well. Let me ask a few rapid fire questions and don't think too hard about it. Say the first thing that
Sure.
comes to mind. What's the
Absolutely.
best advice you've ever received in your career?
Nothing is rocket science.
Fantastic.
Somebody told me this, and that time I was trying to navigate my career, and this person just simply told me, whatever you choose to do, please remember nothing is rocket science. Okay, it all seems very difficult. There are a lot of jargons used, but once you get into it and you're passionate about what you want to do, you will ensure that you will grow and you will succeed in that space. So that has stayed with me. Nothing is rocket science.
Oh, absolutely. I think sometimes we make things bigger than they are in our own
Yes.
heads. Right.
Yes.
Awesome. What's a favorite book or podcast that that inspires you or that you would recommend to a team member?
So you know what, and I'm saying this on an open platform. I think I just love the way Marshall Goldsmith speaks and writes. I had the opportunity to meet him twice. I think his book on, what brought you here won't take you there. So that's something, that I really live by. And the other, during multiple conversations, and if you watch his podcast, you will hear this. He uses one word called feed forward.
Yeah.
I just love that. And I've been trying to inculcate that in myself. And I also keep telling this to my team members, saying that don't talk about feedback. Let's always talk about feed forward. Indra Nungi is another person that I really admire. And, I keep listening to her podcast, even simple things about, even how you carry yourself, how you dress up, and how she changed, how when she changed the way she dresses, she felt, and, there was a change in her. So those are, these are two people that I think I very, very, enjoy listening to.
I think we share common inspiration in terms of Indranvi for sure. What is one personal mantra or motto that you live by?
For me, I think somehow life has always been about work. I'm so passionate about people, and in my area of work, I'm lucky to be able to interacting with so many people and meeting so many people across. So for me, it is, I think the mantra that I live with is, you own your career. You own your career. You own your life. So nobody else is there to blame. You have to. The choices that you make is yours, and you have to live those choices.
No, absolutely, absolutely love that. And if there is one word to describe your leadership style, Shati,
I would say empathetic.
I
I know
I
these days are tough days. Sometimes you have to take tough decisions. And I had to also take some tough decisions during my career journey. But one thing that I have ensured is I have been always empathetic, ensured that I've taken care of the person in certain ways, even if I have to let go of them.
absolutely, absolutely wonderful to hear. I think one last thing that we wanted to add to the conversation in dialogue with Darwin, Shati, is to speak about certain myths and see if they're really if they're time tested truths or they're just myths, right?
Mhm.
And if I can ask you maybe two of them,
Sure.
there's probably a belief that leaders can't show vulnerability. What do you think? Are you, as a leader, who would share your mistakes? So, what do you think about leaders showing vulnerability?
For me, I think, given the person that I am, I'm extremely open and direct. I can't. So, two things that I go by, and one is being brutally honest. In whatever I do, I generally ask this question to myself: Am I being brutally honest? Okay. The other thing is about being an authentic leader. So, few years back, we went through, like I was saying, I developed this program for senior women leaders, and with the coach, when we were talking about, this was one topic that came up. So, I think being that authentic leader, and if you are an authentic leader, I think being vulnerable is, because then your colleagues or your employees or your members see you as a person, as a human being, as a human, right? So they also can understand you are human. You can also make mistakes. You can also sometimes, make wrong decisions, but you are courageous enough to accept that and to be open about it. I think these are the two things.
I think it's not about whether or not to show vulnerability, but to rather be a authentic leader who is being a true self
Yes.
and being honest, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Then I think the second one is something that's also relevant to what we spoke through the conversation.
Mhm.
Work-life balance. Is it a myth for the most successful leaders?
These days I think it is about work life integration. I think, and again, I'm happy to say this, that when there is work and you need to work, you will, because you enjoy, you don't think that this is work or just job. If that is the case, you will end up just doing what you need to do. But the days when it is a little light or you don't have anything else to do, nobody's going to even question you that, oh, why are you not showing up, or is this, you have not clocked in the time.
Yeah.
And I believe the same for my team. I always tell them that you are empowered. You need to decide if there's something that needs to be completed and that needs to be, there's a timeline, feel free to do that. There isn't anything you want to take some time off, you want to, do whatever you want to do, you are absolutely fine. I feel it's more about how you integrate. And of course, the workplace and the work environment has to be also providing you with that kind of, flexibility.
True.
They should
Right.
be doing that.
Yeah. No, I think I really love what you said, and the most important part of what you said is, giving the comfort to the team that hey, the day you don't have work, nobody's judging you if you're just not putting those 8 hours into work.
Yes.
You don't need to just for the sake of it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the kind of culture that can be nurtured to genuinely bring out the best in people. I love that part that you acknowledged as well, Shati. Wow, it's been a fantastic conversation that, I ran over time for a good 20
Okay.
minutes than what we've planned for. It's been very insightful to learn from your journey and also from the initiatives that you have taken at GEP uh, to kind of tackle one of the most toughest challenges, if I would say, in order to drive diversity, right? It's uh, as it is, it's not an easy thing, and especially in those working conditions and given the kind of business requirements, it's not an easy challenge to tackle, but really interesting initiatives that make meaningful impact that I could learn about today. Thank you so much, Shati, for sharing that. Thank you so much for having this conversation with us. It's been lovely learning from you.
Thank you, Gautami, for this opportunity and this platform. I really enjoyed having that conversation as well, and wish you and the team the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you.